The Bet by Anton Chekhov. It was a dark autumn night. The old banker was walking up and down the study, and remembering how 15 years before he had given a party one autumn evening. There had been many clever men there, and there had been interesting conversations. Among other things, they had talked of capital punishment. The majority of the guests, among whom were many journalists and intellectual men, disapproved of the death penalty. They considered that form of punishment out of date, immoral, and unsuitable for Christian states. In the opinion of some of them, the death penalty ought to be replaced everywhere by imprisonment for life. "I don't agree with you," said their host, the banker. "I have not tried either the death penalty or imprisonment for life, but if one may judge, a priori, the death penalty is more moral and more humane than imprisonment for life. Capital punishment kills a man at once, but lifelong imprisonment kills him slowly. Which executioner is the more humane? He will kill you in a few minutes, or he will drag the life of you in the course of many years." "Both are equally immoral," observed one of the guests, "for they both have the same object, to take away life. The state is not God. It has not the right to take away what it cannot restore when it wants to." Among the guests was a young lawyer, a young man of 25. When he was asked his opinion, he said, "The death sentence and the life sentence are equally immoral, but if I had to choose between the death penalty and imprisonment for life, I would certainly choose the second. To live anyhow is better than not at all." A lively discussion arose. The banker, who was younger and more nervous in those days, was suddenly carried away by excitement. He struck the table with his fist and shouted at the young man, "It's not true! I bet you 2 millions we wouldn't stay in solitary confinement for 5 years." "If you mean that in earnest," said the young man, "I'll take the bet, but I will stay not 5 but 15 years." "15? Done!" cried the banker. "Gentlemen, I stake 2 millions." "Agreed. Stake your millions, and stake my freedom," said the young man, and this wild and endless bet was carried out. The banker, spoiled and frivolous, with millions beyond his reckoning, was delighted, and the bet at super he made fun of the young man and said, "Think better of it, young man, while there is still time. To me 2 millions are a trifle, but you are losing 3 or 4 of the best years of your life. I say 3 or 4 because you won't stay longer. Don't forget either, you unhappy man, that voluntary confinement is a great deal harder to bear than compulsory. The thought you have the right to step out in liberty at any moment will poison your whole existence. In prison, I am sorry for you." And now the banker, walking to and fro, remembered all this and asked himself, what was the object of the bet? What is the good of the man's losing 15 years of his life, and by throwing away 2 millions? Can it prove that the death penalty is better or worse than imprisonment for life? No, no. It was all nonsensical and meaningless. On my part, it was the caprice and pampered man, and on his part simple greed for money. Then he remembered what followed the evening. It was decided that the young man should spend the years of his captivity under the strictest supervision in one of the lodges in the banker's garden. It was agreed that 14 years he should not be free to cross the threshold of the lodge to see human being, to hear the voice, or to receive letters and newspapers. He was allowed to have musical instruments and books, and was allowed to write letters, to drink wine, and smoke. By that terms, of the agreement, the only relations he could have with the outer world were by little window made purposely for the object. He might have anything he wanted: books, music, wine, and so on, in a quantity he desired by writing an order, but he could only receive them through the window. The agreement provided for every detail and every trifle that would make his imprisonment strictly solitary, and bound the young man stay there exactly 15 years, beginning from 12 o'clock of November 14, 1870, and ending at 12 o'clock of November 14, 1885. The slightest attempt on his part to break condition, if only 2 minutes before the end, released the banker from their obligation to pay him 2 millions. For the first year of his confinement, as far as one could judge from his brief notes, the prisoners suffered severely from loneliness and depression. The sounds of the piano could be heard continually day and night. From his lodge he refused wine and tobacco. Wine, he wrote, excites the desires, and desires are the worst foes of the prisoners. And beside nothing could be more dreary than drinking good wine and seeing no one, and tobacco spoiled the air of his room. In the first year, the books he sent for were principally of light character, novels with a complicated love plot, sensational and fantastic stories, and so on. In the second year, the piano was silent in the lodge, and the prisoner asked only for the classic. In the fifth year, music was audible again, and the prisoner asked for wine. Those who watched him through the window said that's all that year he spent doing, nothing but eating and drinking, and lying on his bed, frequently yawning and angry, talking to himself. He did not read books. Sometimes at night he would sit down to write. He would spend hours writing, and in the morning tear up all that he had written. More than once he could be heard crying. In the second half, the sixth year, the prisoner began zealously studying languages, philosophy, and history. He threw himself eagerly into these studies, so much so that banker had enough to do get him the books he ordered. In the course of 4 years. Some 600 volumes were procured at his request. It was during this period that the banker received the following letter from his prisoner. My dear jailer, I write you this line in 6 languages. Show them to people who know the languages. Let them read them. If they find not one mistake, I implore you to fire a shot in the garden. That shot will show me that my efforts have not been thrown away. The geniuses of all ages and of all lands speak different languages, but the same flame burns them all. Oh, if you only knew what unearthly happiness my soul feels now from being able to understand them. The prisoner's desire was fulfilled. The banker ordered 2 shots to be fired in the garden. Then, after the 10th year, the prisoner sat immovably at the table and read nothing but the gospel. It seemed strange to the banker that a man who in 4 years had mastered 600 learned volumes should waste nearly a year over one thin book, easy of comprehension. Theology and histories of religion followed the gospel. In the last 2 years of his confinement, the prisoner read in immense quantity of books, quite indiscriminately. At one time he was busy with the natural sciences. Then he would ask for Byron or Shakespeare. There were notes in which demanded at the same time books on chemistry and manual medicine, and a novel and some treats of philosophy or theology. He reading suggested a man swimming in the sea among the wreckage of his ship, and trying to save his life by greedily clutching first at one spar and then at another. The old banker remembered all this and thought, tomorrow at 12 o'clock he will regain his freedom. By our agreement, I ought to pay him 2 million. If I do pay him, it is all over with me. I shall be utterly ruined. 15 years before, his millions had been beyond his reckoning. Now he was afraid to ask himself, which were greater, his debts or his assets? Desperate gambling on stock exchange, while speculation and the exactability, which he could not get over even advancing years, had by degrees led to the decline of his fortune, and the proud, fearless, self-confident millionaire had become banker of middling rank, trembling at every rise and fall in his investment. Curse pet, muttered the old man, clutching his head in despair. Why didn't the man die? He is only 40 now. He will take my last penny for me. He will marry, will enjoy life, will gamble in the exchange, while I shall look at him with envy like a beggar, and hear him every day the same sentence, I am indebted to you for the happiness of my life. Let me help you. No, it is too much. The one means of being saved from bankruptcy and disgrace in the death of the man. It